we've got to learn this scenario of stop feeding plants. If you find yourself down in the local hardware store with your shopping trolley, bewildered by what you need to be putting in your shopping trolley, smack your hand and get out of there. You don't need any of that stuff. All that stuff you're putting in the green bin, compost it, get yourself a worm farm, put that near the back door, feed them daily, and take advantage of the worm castings that you'll be able to use. You can mix with some sifted compost. Now you've got a superfood that you can be feeding over the top of your mulch, feeding your soil, not your plants. And the biostimulant that they make at the bottom is second to none. I mean, it's full of microbiological signals that you can use as a stimulant. It's super easy. And what's gobsmacking is that I haven't used fertilisers or any soil amendments in 3 years. My garden has never ever been healthier. I don't have any pest or disease problems anywhere. It's remarkable. I mean, who knew? And I've used more fertiliser than anyone possibly could ever have done in a garden. Knowing what I know and how I've been taught. Now, I guess back in the time, it was knowledge that was right for the time with what they knew. But as we live in an ever-changing world, things change. Like I started this episode with leaving, when I left horticultural college, if you had a codling moth problem, I would send you home with arsenate of lead. And today I send you home with a bulb of garlic and a punnet of nasturtiums. Things have changed. And we've come to understand the error of our ways. And what we need to do now is, as gardeners and people that are working with soil, we need to understand that we have had it wrong and we need to move forward differently, very differently than we have, because 65 years of topsoil is not a lot left, let me tell you. And it won't matter to me because I'll be long gone by then, but it's going to matter to my 11 grandkids, and I think we owe it to them and our future generations to come to leave a better legacy than we're about to. And unfortunately, this came about from post-Second World War. They were making bombs with nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Not only that, but they, of course, had huge petrochem plants supplying fuel and so forth toward the war effort. When that all stopped, I had petrochem plants thinking, well, what are we going to do with all this stuff? And a very clever German scientist by the name of Justus von Liebig worked out that at set ratios, it was great plant food, and it was marketed across the globe as we repopulated the planet after the Second World War as the Green Revolution, and the mechanical and chemical farming began. And we've now got to the moron effect, we call it. We're now applying 10 times more to get the same effect than we started out.
Yeah.
And, you speak to most farmers these days, they'll tell you their biggest input costs are fertilisers and insecticides. And the minute you apply fertilisers, you increase the pest and disease pressure because you lower the nutrient density in the plants. And then the bricks levels drop and the insects move in, and now you're back at the petrochem plants again buying insecticides to sort out the problem you created in the first place. Think about the Amazon rainforest. No sprays there. Humus in the Amazon rainforest in some parts, not 5%, 30%. Think about that for a minute. 17 litres per percent. That is incredible. So we really need to rethink how we've had soil, and stay tuned, because it's, as I say, it is a new frontier, and I'm still learning stuff now that, there's electrical conductivity as well. Every microbe basically has a half a volt of electricity in there, so there's much more to learn in all of this, but it's much simpler than we, I said it at the outset with you earlier, Luke, that we've overcomplicated gardening so much, and just you don't need any of this stuff. You've got it all. Just simply compost it. Don't put anything on your garden that hasn't gone through the compost first. And the more diverse you can make that compost, the better it will be. And the more plant family groups you grow together, the better off the microbes will be. And you just simply, a quick whip round once a month, just broadcast. That's all you really need to do. It's not that hard. So,
Well,
So
I was
there
going
you
to
go.
ask you about the. I was going to ask you a little bit more about the compaction. We did this video. I haven't released it yet, but you'll be
Yep.
interested with this. We did a video with a friend of the channel who's from the YouTube channel called The Aussie Lawn. And what we did is we got every single type of lawn aerator you can imagine. We went everything from the spiky shoes to a pitchfork to a hire machine to all the way up to, $10,000, $20,000 to a $70,000 system with a tractor and and we had a penetrometer and we were testing out do these things actually make a difference, all that sort of stuff. I can tell you that the pitchfork wiggle method that you talked about before was second best. Second best to the $70,000 tractor. That's and now it's the slowest if you want to. But we had a penetrometer. But that's the thing. We had a penetrometer, and we literally and this is just in lawn, and you just push it down and you wiggle it, and it's incredibly effective at how well it works. Now, my question for you is, can you make the soil too compact, so too loose? Is there a point so you can't? So it sounds. Yeah, you go.
If you can walk across the soil, the minute you walk across, now knowing what you know, you can tell straight away whether the soil's compact or not. Because if it's not got any give or some sponginess about it, you know it's compact. It's just a case of now how compact. So there's no level as to how deep you can go with this. And in fact, I've seen some studies where wheat roots in fertilised soil only head down about 50 mil. That's about as deep as they get.
Yeah.
In regenerative farms that have been looked after and have been used biostimulants and so forth in a multi-species array of plants, and when I say multi-species, they're doing 14, 16 different species all at once, including wheat. And they head the lot and they put it through a digital seed sorter, and they're raking it in, but the roots are travelling down well over a metre deep, opposed to 50 mil. Can you imagine the plants, how strong and robust those plants are and what they're delivering in the grains of wheat? I mean, it doesn't make any sense the way how we thought growing food plants with poisons and chemicals was going to have a good outcome is pretty silly, really, when you think about it. And yet we're still doing it.
I've got another story for you. We had a company on who make compost, and we went to their site and we went through the whole thing of how they take waste. Well, yeah, they don't call it waste products. What do they call it? Anyways, the byproducts. Where they took stuff from, say, like the husks of oak husks, and all that sort of stuff. And we went through all the machines and everything to make this compost. And, a really great thing. Now, they had this farm that came to them down south, and they said, we want to do some trial plots, and I think it was about an acre each. And they said, we want to get some of this compost, and instead of using fertilizer like you've talked about, we want to use the compost. And they had 3 different acres at 3 different application rates, low, medium, heavy. And, of course, it's very it's very expensive to do this practice. So they're trialing it out. Now, what they did is they took some photos, and I saw the photos. I wish I had them. I might be able to contact Greg and get them from them for put it on the podcast. But what they did was fascinating, because the results were that even though it was incredibly expensive, they made more money on every single plot than the last one before, to the point where it was actually the most financially responsible thing there was to go at the highest application rate. So the 4 options they had were, 1, continue with the cheapest cost, which was the fertilizers, and then go to essentially what they're doing is broadcasting compost over the fields. The lowest application rate, more growth. The medium application growth, even more growth. The highest application rate, even greater growth. And even though the expenses would have been through the roof over the course of the farm, the return on investment they got in those trial plots. So they've gone this year, I believe. I don't know if they've done it already, but the next season they went for the whole farm, compost over the entire farm. So a lot of people might be listening to this being, everyone's suspicious of new ideas when they've heard it the first time. But it's getting more and more popular.
Yeah. Look, school's no longer out. There is a tidal wave of information headed our way. It can no longer be suppressed. And I think that people like myself, and there are others, that have written books and are doing what I'm doing, spreading the word that, this is important info, mate. I said to you at early stage, I've written 6 books. This one is the most important I've written to date, because if you don't get soil right, you don't get anything else right, including your own health. And that's the thing that really gobsmacked me. When I heard that we're only operating off 8% of our DNA and 92% of it switched off because we've managed to demineralise our food by the way it's grown, we're now not getting what we're meant to get, which means that parts of our DNA cannot switch on when we come in contact with something that needs some autoimmune response or effect. We don't have the wherewithal to do that. So we succumb to it, and we get IBS, or we get Alzheimer's, or we get cardiovascular disease, or rheumatoid arthritis. These are all linked. These are things that you can't walk down the street and catch. These are autoimmune. These are parts of ourselves that we don't recognise and we have no response to because we don't have a functioning DNA.
I've always said that some people are really good as independents. That's what suits them. Some people, and probably most, are better as employees. There are a fraction of people where franchises are really successful. Doesn't matter the industry, sometimes that's the best route for your personality type and the giftings you have. We've had a bunch of people over the years say that gyms has been great for them, and so that's why we're really proud to have them on board. Believe it or not, the fees per month, they're usually about $700 to $800 a month, which realistically is what a lot of people, independents, are spending on their marketing, their advertising, their administration anyway. If you want to find out more, the best thing I'd suggest is jump on the podcast. Joel does a great job chatting with people what their real experiences are like, and if you think that really suits you, perhaps they are the choice for you. Jump on the gym's website after, get an inquiry, and find out more.